Okay, you guys are going to watch your first video with the Herminator here. This is just a preview of what's in the next unit. If you don't understand it, that's fine. We'll break it down in the next unit. For now, you just need to watch this video, take the notes, and give you a little background knowledge on solving equations for x. So this time, I don't have a given for x. It's your job to find the given value for x, the replacement value. So we have an equation here. Whenever I have an equals, that's called an equation. And the equation says 2x plus 3 equals 11. Now, first off, we need operators. So between 2 and x would be multiplication, x and 3 is addition, and then the 11 has no operations, okay? What my job is basically is to get the x by itself. So what you want to do, what I usually do, is I circle the multiplication operation. Now, outside of that, what other operation do I have? I have a plus 3, okay? So we need to do the opposite of plus 3, the opposite operation of plus 3, which is minus 3. So I'm going to minus 3 from 3. Now, an equation's like a balance, okay? When you take 3 away from one side, you have to take it away from the other side. So here's why you do that. 3 minus 3 is 0, so we can get rid of that. And then 11 minus 3 is 8. So you got 2 times x equals 8. So I got rid of the plus operation. Now I need to get rid of the times operation. 2 times what number is 8? Now you probably know that in your head, okay? Now here's the way you want to show your work though. When you see multiplication, what you're going to do is underline that entire expression, and we want to undo the multiplication of 2. So I'm going to put a 2 under the line. Because if you remember before, okay, when I have a factor of 2 on top and a factor of 2 on bottom, we can cancel those. But then to keep my equation balanced, I have to take the 8 and divide it by 2. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, I divide both sides by 2. So I can go ahead and put 4. And that makes sense because in the original equation, remember, if I do a replacement of 4, 2 times 4 is 8. 8 plus 3 is 11, which is what I have on that side. Okay, now in this next one, we have 16 equals negative 3x plus 1. Okay, so 16 has no operations, so I'm going to look over here because then I get to the equals. Between negative 3 and x is multiplication, and between the x and the 1 is addition. So I circle the multiplication. First, I have to get rid of the addition outside. Okay, the opposite of addition is to subtract. So I subtract 1, because 1 minus 1 would give me 0, but then I have to go to the other side of the equation and subtract 1. The equation's like a balance. The equals is a balance. So 16 minus 1 is 15 equals, and I still got negative 3 times x. Then 1 minus 1, 0. We can go ahead and get rid of that. Okay, so again, now I'm going to get rid of the multiplication operation. What I do is I make a line, because the opposite of multiplication is division. And I put the negative 3 down there, and you also want to put it as negative 3 because when you divide, you have to have the exact same factor on top and on bottom. Those will cancel, but then I divided this by negative 3, but then I have to go to the other side and divide by negative 3 over here. So 15 divided by negative 3 is negative 5. Okay, so after I've divided, I've found my replacement value. That's generally how that works. Division is always the final operation that you do to solve these. And that makes sense because negative 3 times negative 5 is 15, and then plus 1 is 16, which is what I had over there originally. Okay, my next one, negative 5x minus 3 equals negative 18. So again, the x is multiplied by 5, negative 5. And then I have a subtraction of 3. I don't usually do the plus negative when I'm trying to solve these. Okay, that leads to some confusion. Equals negative 18. So here's where all the operations on the left side here with the x. So outside of the multiplication, we have subtraction of 3. So what's the opposite of subtraction? Addition. So we're going to add 3. We're going to add 3. Again, so I have negative 5 times x. That's okay. So that was a subtraction of 3, but now when I'm looking here, I'm thinking of it as negative 3 plus 3. Okay, so if you look at a number line, you don't have to get this out. So if I start at negative 3 and I add 3, I go to the right. So 1, 2, 3. That takes me to 0. So we can now cross those out. Then equals negative 18 plus 3. So I'm at negative 18. Okay. And I'm adding, so I go right 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that'd be negative 15. Okay, now it's time to undo the division operation, and you are going to then draw your line, because that means divide, because the opposite of multiply is divide, by the factor of negative 5. Okay, because when I have a factor on top and a factor on bottom, we can cross those out. Then we need to divide this other side by negative 5 as well. So negative 15 divided by negative 5. Negative divided by negative is a positive, and it's positive 3. Okay, negative 7x plus 3 equals 11. Okay, so the x, so negative 7 and x, so multipliers times. Again, I usually circle. And then plus 3 equals negative 11. So outside the times, we have plus. We have to go after the plus or minus outside first. Okay, so I get rid of the plus 3 first, which would be subtract 3. Because we know 3 minus 3 is 0. And you have negative 7 times x. Then negative 11 minus 3. Okay, so you're at negative 11. When you subtract, we go left. 1, 2, 3. And that's negative 14. Okay, then the opposite of multiply is divide, so I draw my lines, okay, on both sides, and the factor I'm trying to unmultiply is negative 7, so I put negative 7 under both of the dividing lines. Because I have a common factor of negative 7 on top and bottom, they can cross out. The negative divided by negative is a positive, okay, so that's going to be positive 2. Okay, now turn over to the back of that, okay, because you have problems on the back. And I want you to look at a little more complex equation. Again, we're kind of throwing everything at you today. I'll break it down. I will break it down simpler next week. Okay, now I don't want to put the dot yet because I see two x variables, okay, a 2x and a 5x. Well, what do we do with those? We need to simplify the equation so the x variable is only there once. Right now it's there twice. Now when they're on the opposite side, what I write, they're on the same side of the equals. Okay, here's my equals, they're on the same side, the x's are. So I write CLT, and that means combine like terms. So I'd like to draw a triangle to connect those, and just write CLT. So it's like 2 plus 5. It's not 2 minus 5. The minus is with the 4. It's 2 plus 5. 2x plus 5x would give you 7x. Then we have a subtraction of 4, and then equals 31. Now it looks exactly like those problems we just had. Now I can put my dot because I see the operator to the x is the multiplier 7. Minus 4, so we have to get rid of the minus 4. We do that by plus 4. Okay? Because on a number line, if you start at negative 4 and go 4 to the right, you're going to end up at 0. So 7 times x equals 35. Okay? Now, the opposite of multiply is divide, so I draw two lines. And the factor I'm trying to get the factor that is multiplied by x is 7, so we put 7. I have a lot of people that mess it up and put the 35 under the lines. No, 35 is not the factor multiplied by x. So those can cancel, and 35 divided by 7 is 5. Again, after you divide, you pretty much have found your replacement. Okay, the next one. Again, you don't want to go put the dots because I see x 2 different times, okay? So again, you're going to draw your CLT triangle, okay? So I have negative 9 plus 6, okay? So on a number line, negative 9 plus 6 would go this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's negative 3x. Then the x's have been combined. I still have a subtraction of 4. And then equals 17. So now this is my x. It's multiplied by negative 3. It has a 4 being subtracted. So I'm going to do the opposite of minus 4, which is to plus 4. And then I go to the other side of the equals and plus 4 to the value over there, 17 plus 4. So negative 4 plus 4 is 0. Again, think number line. Remember, I know that says minus, but then when we're doing this, we think of that 4 as a negative on top. It's going to act as a negative. 1, 2, 3, 4, see 0. So if it's 0, I don't put it. And then I have negative 3 multiplied by x equals 21. Okay, now it's time to do the opposite of multiply, which is to divide. Show your work by underlining, because that's what a division sign we use in algebra. And the factor multiplied by x is negative 3. So I put negative 3 under there, because negative 3 and negative 3 then can cancel. Okay. 21 divided by negative 3 is negative 7. Okay. Here's what a lot of people mess up, though, on the division. They'll put a plus 3 under there. No, that's wrong. When you're divided, it has to be by the exact same factor multiplied by x, which is negative 3. Okay, my next one, I've got 20. Okay, again, we have two x is there 2 different times. So before I'm worried about the operators, I need to simplify the equation so that the x is there only once. And again, they're on the same side. So we do CLT. Okay, it's just 5 minus 10. So I'm going to put 25 over there. Now over here we got to take 5 minus 10. So if you're at 5 and you subtract, you go left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's going to be negative 5x. Okay, and we still have to add our 5. Okay, now that x is there only once, I worry about my operators. So that's a multiplication, then a plus 5. So we have to get rid of the plus 5 by minus 5. Because 5 minus 5 is 0, and 25 minus 5 is 20. Okay, and you got negative 5 times x. Okay, now it's time to do the opposite of multiplication. Okay, so we divide both sides by the factor that multiplies the x, which is negative 5. Not 5, negative 5. Because I have a common factor on top and bottom, we can get rid of those. So 20 divided by negative 5 is negative 4. Okay, then the last one on this page, and then the back gets a little more complex. Okay, again, we need to simplify this equation so the x's are only once. So again, I do my CLT triangle, combine like terms. So I do negative 3 plus 7. Negative 3 adds 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 4, so that would be 4x. And we still have an 8 to add, although we're not, again, we can't add 4x to 8, okay? So x now has a multiplier of 4. And there's another operation that's happening, the plus 8. We need to undo the plus 8 by subtracting 8. Because 8 minus 8 is 0. And then 4 times x. And then 24 minus 8 is 16. Then I divide by 4. And 16 divided by 4 is 4. Okay, now go to that other page that's connected to the back, and here's where things start to get pretty confusing. And we'll do them, but we have things to work on first before we get this intense. Okay, again, you have a problem that the x variable is there twice, but you can't do the CLT triangle, the combine like terms, because they're on opposite sides of the equals. So when they're on opposite sides of the equals, you're going to do what's called balancing. Just put balance. Here's how you balance the equation. Take the smaller x that you have. 2x is smaller than 4x. They're both positive. Okay? Since it has no operation sign, it doesn't have a sign. If it doesn't have a sign, put a plus. So you need to think of that as plus 2x, adding 2x. What's the opposite of plus 2x? Minus 2x. So I subtract 2x. Then I come over here and subtract that same 2x under the 4x. Okay? because 4 minus 2 is 2x plus the 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. It doesn't matter if it has x or not. If it's 0, you can get rid of it. And then we now have negative 12. Okay? Okay, now it's simplified. So I have the 2 is multiplied by x. There's a 2 being added. So we have to do the opposite of plus 2, which is minus 2. So negative 12 minus 2. Again, minus goes this way. 1, 2. Try to not do the plus negative at this point. Okay? The only time we're going to do that in equation if the equation has parentheses. So we divide. Now we have our multiplication of 2, so I underline both sides because that's the opposite of multiplication. And the factor multiplied by x is 2. So we put 2, knowing that we can cross the 2's out, and negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. Okay, the next one, again, the x appears twice, but it's on opposite sides. So you can't do the CLT triangle. Instead, you need to balance the equation. So you have a negative 3x, and that's a minus operator, but we're going to think of that as a negative 6x. So what's smaller, negative 3 or negative 6? Negative 6. So I'm going to balance from this side over to that side. So what would be the opposite of minus 6x? Plus 6x, and then I plus 6x to the negative 3x. So negative 3 plus 6, okay? Plus 6 going this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It takes me to 3x. Then I have the 6 being added. And then we have 15. Remember, negative 6 plus 6. I know that's a subtraction, but again, you need to, when you're doing your adding, you need to think of that as a negative. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, so get rid of it. Okay, so again, x is being multiplied by 3. We have a 6 being added, so we subtract 6. 6 minus 6 is 0. 3 times x. 15 minus 6 is 9. Now it is time to do the opposite of multiplication, which is to divide. Okay, x is being multiplied by 3, so 3 is what I use to divide both sides by, not the 9. And then 9 divided by 3 is 3. Okay, next one, negative 7x minus 3 equals 3x plus 27. Again, you got x's, but they're on opposite sides, so we have to balance. So I got a negative 7 and a positive 3. Well, negative 7 is smaller, so that's where we want to, do the opposite right here. So what's the opposite? Now, a negative 7 is like a minus 7, okay? You need to think of that. What negative is like a minus. So what's the opposite of minus? It's plus, okay? So I add 7x, and then I add 7x to the 3x on the other side. Now, negative 7 plus 7... 1, 2, you're adding 7. You're going to be at 0. And we have negative 3. And then 3x plus 7x is 10x. Then plus 27. Okay, so our x is now, I can see the multiplying value is 10. And there's a 27 being added. Okay, so we do the opposite of plus 27. 27 minus 27 is 0. But then we have to subtract 27 from the negative 3. Negative, I'm not going to the number line for that. Negative 3 minus 27 is negative 30. I'm not going to travel 27 places. That takes forever. And then we divide by the value that's multiplied by x, which in this instance is the 10. Because now the x is by itself, and x equals negative 30 divided by 10, which is negative 3. Okay, then the last one. Again, the x's are on opposite sides, so you can't do the CLTV that I did on the second page. You have to do the balance. Okay, now we got positive 8 and negative 5. Well, negative 5 is smaller, so we're going to look here. Now, switch gears and think of that as minus 5x. So what's the opposite of minus 5x? Plus 5x. Then I add 5x to the 8x. So 8x plus 5x is 13x plus 2 That's 0. That's why you do that. And then we have 28. Okay. Then x has a multiplier of 13. I put the dot there. There's also an operation of adding 2, so we have to undo the plus first. So we subtract 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. And we have 13 times x equals 26. Okay, now it is time to divide both sides by the factor that multiplies the x, 13. You would not believe how many people in the past I've had putting 26 under there, or whatever numbers on the other side. The factor that's multiplied by x goes on the denominator. Then 26 divided by 13 is 2. Okay, that's all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next week.